The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. Words do not express thoughts very well. Everything immediately becomes a little different, a little distorted, a little foolish. And yet it also pleases me, and seems right that what is of value and wisdom of one man seems nonsense to another. To teach how to live without certainty, and yet without being paralyzed by hesitation, is perhaps the chief thing that philosophy in our age can still do for those who study it. The philosopher wants to know things as they are. He loves the truth. That is an intellectual virtue. He does not love to tell the truth. That is a moral virtue. Presumably he would prefer not to practice deception, but if it's a condition of his survival, he has no objection to it. The hopes of changing mankind almost always end up in changing not mankind, but one's thought. A great many people think they are thinking, when they are merely rearranging their prejudices. Tomorrow and plans for tomorrow can have no significance at all, unless you are in full contact with the reality of the present, since it is in the present and only in the present that you live. There is no other reality than present reality, so that even if one were to live for endless ages, to live for the future would be to miss the point everlastingly. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. You are arranging what lies in fortune's control and abandoning what lies in yours. What are you looking at? To what goal are you straining? The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. What you are basically, deep, deep down, far, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself. First, have a definite, clear, practical ideal, a goal, an objective. Second, have the necessary means to achieve your ends: wisdom, money, materials, and methods. Third, adjust all your means to that end. Look back over the past, with its changing empires that rose and fell, and you can foresee the future too. Until we have begun to go without them, we fail to realize how unnecessary many things are. We've been using them not because we needed them, but because we had them. The wise man does not expose himself needlessly to danger. Since there are few things for which he cares sufficiently, he is willing in great crisis to give even his life, knowing that under certain conditions it is not worthwhile to live. He is of a disposition to do men's service, though he is ashamed to have a service done to him. To confer a kindness is the mark of superiority. as a philosopher. If I was speaking to a purely philosophic audience, I should say that I ought to describe myself as agnostic, because I do not think that there is a conclusive argument by which one can prove that there is not a God. On the other hand, if I am to convey the right impression to the ordinary man in the street, I think that I ought to say that I am an atheist, because when I say that I cannot prove that there is not a God, I ought to add equally that I cannot prove that they are not the Homeric gods. You live as if you were destined to live forever. No thought of your frailty ever enters your head. Of how much time has already gone by, you take no heed. You squander time as if you drew from a full and abundant supply, though all the while the day which you bestow on some person or thing is perhaps your last. He is not prone to vehemence, for he thinks nothing very important. A shrill voice and hasty steps come to a man through care. He bears the accidents of life with dignity and grace, making the best of his circumstances like a skillful general who marshals his limited forces with a strategy of war. He is his own best friend and takes delight in privacy, whereas the man of no virtue or ability is his known worst enemy and is afraid of solitude. Simplicity, patience, compassion. These three are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and thoughts. You return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies. You accord with the way things are. Compassionate towards yourself. You reconcile all beings in the world. An intellectual is someone whose mind watches itself. I like this, because I'm happy to be both halves, the watcher and the watched. Can they be brought together? This is a practical question. We must get down to it. I despise intelligence really means I cannot bear my doubts. I have realized that the past and the future are real illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. You are a function of what the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is a function of what the whole ocean is doing. If men learn this, it will implant forgetfulness in their souls. They will cease to exercise memory because they rely on that which is written, calling things to remembrance no longer from within themselves, but by means of external marks. What you have discovered is a recipe not for memory, but for reminder. And it's no true wisdom that you offer your disciples, but only its semblance. For by telling them of many things without teaching them, you will make them seem to know much, while for the most part they know nothing. And as men filled, not with wisdom, but with the conceit of wisdom, they will be a burden to their fellows. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. The self-indulgent man craves for all pleasant things and is led by his appetite to choose these things at the cost of everything else. Meditation is the discovery that the point of life is always arrived at the immediate moment. The only Zen you'll find on the mountaintop is the Zen you bring up there with you. Anybody can become angry. This is easy. But to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way, this is not within everybody's power and it's not easy. Things are as they are. Looking out into the universe at night, we make no comparisons between right and wrong stars, nor between well and badly arranged constellations. My best friend is the man who is wishing me well, wishes it for my sake. If we cling to belief in God, we cannot likewise have faith, since faith is not clinging but letting go. Bad people are in conflict with themselves. They desire one thing and will another, like the incontinent who choose harmful pleasures instead of what they themselves believe to be good.